The American president, Donald Trump, seems ready to take a new step to help Ukraine, one that even Joe Biden did not dare to take. United States President Donald Trump is considering providing new funding to Ukraine for the first time since he took office in January. And Trump is not only ready to allocate money from the United States budget, but also finally to transfer to Ukraine part of the frozen Russian assets. And now analysts are puzzling over whether Trump has really decided to finally take Ukraine's side, or if this is just an attempt to somehow hint to Putin that it's time to sit down at the negotiating table. My name is Alexei. Today is July 13th. In this episode, we'll discuss exactly what money, what amount we're talking about, and what Donald Trump is ready to allocate to help Ukraine. Before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment you want, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, numerous diplomatic sources have reported that Trump is ready to allocate about $10 billion in new aid to Ukraine, which will be used to purchase new weapons. On the other hand, according to sources, the new funding may be intended to send a signal to Russia, which in recent days has been shelling Ukraine with drones and missiles. The fact is that this week, Russia launched the largest drone attack since the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022, another in a series of airstrikes that have hit Kyiv and other cities. Earlier this week, Trump hinted that he plans to send more defensive weapons to Ukraine. And just a few days before that, his own administration suspended some arms deliveries to Ukraine. And now, one of the White House officials called this move part of a broader global review of arms supplies. Also, Trump stated the day before that Washington would send weapons, including Patriot air defense systems, to Ukraine through NATO. Trump's quote, "We will transfer Patriot systems to NATO, and then the alliance will handle their distribution." Speaking on Thursday at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Germany would pay for 2 Patriot systems and Norway had agreed to provide another one. Other European partners have also expressed their willingness to help, Zelensky added. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday that some types of American-made weapons needed by Ukraine are already deployed with allies in Europe, and the Europeans should transfer these weapons to Ukraine. According to him, these weapons can be quickly transferred to Ukraine, and European countries can later order the same weapons from the Americans to replace what was supplied to Ukraine. Next is a quote from Marco Rubio. "Transporting goods from Germany to Ukraine is much quicker than ordering and delivering them from a United States factory." Well, and now he reports that Trump has decided to expand aid to Ukraine. American officials reported that Trump has nearly $4 billion at his disposal left over after Joe Biden's presidential term, from the reduced funding which can be used to send American military equipment to Ukraine. Moreover, in order to use this money, Trump doesn't need to ask anyone for permission, not even Congress. Trump hesitated for a long time to use this money, but now he is supposedly ready. Officials also reported that the president has the authority to confiscate about $5 billion from frozen Russian assets and send these funds to Ukraine. And if Trump does this, it will be a really important step, since even Joe Biden did not dare to do it. As reported, since the beginning of 2022, the United States has provided Ukraine with tens of billions of dollars in military aid. And earlier, Trump criticized these expenses and called on Ukraine and Russia to reach a peace agreement. He has periodically criticized both countries, but mostly Ukraine. But in recent days, Russia has angered the United States president, and last week he told reporters that he was extremely disappointed with a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, later he suggested that Russian strikes on Ukraine might prompt him to send more weapons to Ukraine. Quote, "Putin is treating people unfairly, he's killing too many people, so we're sending defensive weapons to Ukraine. And I've already approved that." In other cases, Trump attacked the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, and, for example, a meeting in the Oval Office at the end of February with the Ukrainian president turned into a verbal altercation, which led to a brief pause in the provision of American aid. At that time, Trump accused Zelensky of prolonging the war. Now, Trump no longer says that the president of Ukraine is to blame for the continuation of the war, but for now he is still trying to be cautious. Meanwhile, Trump is pushing European countries to take on a larger share of the burden of supporting Ukraine. A breakthrough has been made and the pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together, as they say. NATO has reported that they are working with member states on the urgent transfer of American ammunition and air defense systems to Ukraine. That is, according to the scheme I wrote about earlier, Marco Rubio. The Europeans are quickly transferring American weapons that are already in Europe to Ukraine, and then they order new weapons from the United States to replace what they sent to Ukraine. Although it's still not entirely clear how this mechanism will work and whether everyone actually agrees to it. Although it is already known that this week Donald Trump discussed with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte the purchases of American equipment by European partners. There is one nuance here. United States law requires countries to obtain approval to transfer any American equipment to a third party, such as Ukraine. Both under Trump and under Biden, the federal government approved the supply of equipment by other countries to Ukraine. And there shouldn't be any problems with that now either. Only if the United States Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, doesn't come up with some new reason, some new excuse to suspend military aid again. And in an interview on Thursday, Trump suggested that NATO would buy weapons from the United States to transfer them to Ukraine. This would be a major shift in policy, since in the past NATO as an institution has not supplied weapons directly to Ukraine, which is not a member of the alliance. Instead, individual members of the alliance have decided to provide assistance to Ukraine on their own. That is, NATO as such has never delivered weapons to Ukraine. Now, all of this could change. And this, by the way, completely changes the structure of the supplies. Trump clearly stated this week, and I quote, "Yeah, the mechanism is as follows. We supply weapons to NATO, and NATO pays for these weapons 100%, and then NATO distributes these weapons." Interestingly, when at a press conference in Malaysia on Friday, United States Secretary of State Mark Rubio was asked about the NATO plan. He refused to go into details about any new mechanism and referred to the plans of European countries to purchase weapons. But still, he added, quote, "In the end, some of the systems that Ukraine needs are not produced in Europe. They will have to purchase them from the United States of America." Although here another interesting nuance arises regarding American weapons, which until today were not produced in Europe. The fact is that today, the coordinator of the Ukraine Assistance Headquarters at the German Ministry of Defense, Major General Christian Freuding, stated that Germany has opened its own production line for missiles for the American Patriot air defense missile systems. And he says that missiles for the Patriot will be supplied to Ukraine from this production line. There is, of course, unfortunately, a nuance. The first deliveries will hopefully be next year. But the Major General assured that Germany would be able to transfer these Patriot missiles to Ukraine without coordination with the United States. Because this production line will eventually be European, and essentially they are buying from the Americans the rights to produce these missiles. In general, we are waiting, as they say, for Donald Trump's address on July 14th. There will be talk about sanctions against Russia and increasing military aid to Ukraine. Well, what do you think Donald Trump will specifically announce tomorrow on June 14th? Write about it in the comments to this episode. Also, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to leave a like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so financially with any donation, by using the links and payment details in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screens. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.